Excuse me, Mr. Crowley, could you put your microphone on? You're speaking to the
Aaron,
microphone.
who will make a little presentation.
Sure.
It's all yours.
Not even a presentation, just a little update. I know everybody is interested in mercantiles, and specifically rentals this time of year. We are thick in the middle of our renewal season. Let me see if I can get this going here. Bear with me a moment. So as of right now, we've issued just over 400 mercantiles so far. Just for a backstory, we decided this year to do electronic distribution of invoices. We emailed out the invoices. Hello. We emailed out the invoices instead of mailing them, and it seemed to be pretty successful. I sent out a test email to everyone on February 26th, and the actual invoices went out on March 6th. So if anyone knows of anyone who did not get theirs yet, please have them reach out to me because there's no way of us knowing that. We were a bit delayed in starting to issue them because we had to wait until the fire prevention fees went into effect on March 18th. So that's when fire prevention distributed all of their invoices. So now we're really seeing that influx of those payments and schedulings going through. So that's why we are now able to really crank out all of these renewals. So my team in my office is working very hard every day, getting as many issued as possible. So we mentioned at a previous council meeting that we have purchased or entered a contract with Deckard Technologies, Inc., and they offer us this Rentalscape software or portal, if you will. I don't have a whole lot to share. This is just a screenshot of like the dashboard when you first log in. So we are just getting off the ground with them at this point. We are scheduling a training pretty shortly. But we have to wait even till basically after May 1st. The deadline for renewals is April 30th for mercantiles so that we can provide them updated information from our SDL system. So, because right now they just kind of have like an overview of potential rental properties in the city. They don't have all of our information because we're in the middle of renewals. So we're going to export all that data to them after May 1st. And then after that, we're probably going to have to send it a few more times. You know, we're still cranking out renewals and then late fees in May, pretty much into June. So right now, we're definitely focusing on renewals of the existing licenses. And then obviously come May, we're then chasing down the stragglers, the people who didn't give us the insurance, or oh, the taxes aren't paid, and oh, you owe a late fee, and everybody yells at us. So I'm probably thinking more towards June. We're going to start, realistically June, switching more into the enforcement and compliance end of this. Once we get through the bulk of the renewals, we can then switch to really diving into this new software. We can dive into the spreadsheet that MTRAC was gracious enough to share with us of, you know, properties that they have identified as non-compliant. We will be working with code enforcement to basically send out educational letters. Oh, we've been made aware that you are operating a short-term rental in the city of Cape May. Please be advised you need a mercantile to do so. Fire inspection, X, Y, and Z, rental registration. We're taking more of that like educational, like, hey, here's all the information. Please submit this by X date. And then if they continue to not do that, that is another discussion that I guess the manager and I will be having as far as, you know, what to do at that point. But generally, people, once you make them aware of that, they're more than likely to comply.
So Aaron, just, you know, one of the things that this company is actually completely focused on, this is a book of business. They work with over 400 municipalities. They were able to, the first question right out the gate that I had was, show me what it looks like because I need to know what zip code you're able to hone in on. And they were able to, as you can see from what Aaron is showing, it's just the city of Cape May. So all of that clutter that we've had before about North Cape May and zip codes and all of that is completely out of the mix. Mm-hmm. They do a nightly search and scrubbing of over 10,000 websites. and have a team of analysts, I want to say between 50 and 60, who are vetting the information. Really very impressive. The closest municipality to us that uses this software platform is Atlantic City, so they were able to actually show them, but it's used up in upstate New York, it's used out in Utah, I mean, it's used all over the country. And it's a very easy, from an end user standpoint, to be able to do filtering report. It looks almost like an Access database. So it's just, sort of click and toggle and kind of a thing. So, most of what we saw was obviously just, as Erin is saying, until we give them our data, it doesn't have a great degree of functionality now, but it will once we have our population, our baseline.
Yeah, this is kind of just-
So my question is there sole role identification?
Yes.
At this stage, yes. We are then taking over the compliance and enforcement end of things.
Gotcha.
So yes, right, as of right now, we are just utilizing them for identifying unlicensed rental property.
And if that's the case, is this expected to continue in future years?
I mean,
For as
yeah,
long as
right,
you
yeah.
think that it's effective, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for us not to, but from my perspective for us, but obviously that would
The
be,
only reason I'm saying that is because you would think that a good portion of the work would be the first year rather than future years.
well, I think you're right with regard to the majority. But interestingly enough, I've talked to several people who recently bought properties and had no idea. And so, I think there's always that opportunity. And there's some other interesting pieces of information that we can gather from that. I won't go into it because it's early on, but yeah.
So the other thing you have to look at, so if you look a little bit on the screen, if Erin, if you could zoom in just a little bit, you can see the different colors. So right now you see there's the bluish ones, they're the ones that they have verified. So part of what Maureen says is they have people, just because when they get a hit, they got to try to figure out, because if you look at a lot of Airbnbs, they don't tell you where the address is on Airbnb, Vrbo, or even some of the real estate sites. So you've got to really scrub. So what those analysts do, they go and start looking at those photos, and then they start matching up photos that they can identify where the address is. And so all the gray ones that you see on the screen, those are ones that have not been verified of do they have a good address to be able to identify, is this 711 Washington Street, or is this some other location? That's,
Right when it was advertised someplace?
but it could have been advertised, but without knowing, because on an Airbnb, when you
doesn't
search
give
for
an
it, it does not give an
Right,
address.
so they picked it up, but they didn't know what the
Yeah.
So they've identified it and they've located it. The other one is a lot of the condo facilities. They're going to be trying to figure out what unit number. So we may have, hey, there's a rental in one of the condo units, but if it's one of the larger ones, there could be 100 condo units. Figuring out, okay, whose it is going to take a while to figure that out. So that's where it's not a complete thing. That's why it may take us some years to be able to piece it together. When Maureen also talked about, we're going to give this access to the tax assessor. So it's going to be a resource for the tax assessor's office to be able to verify current conditions. How do things look? Hey, if he looks at it and says, oh, wow, this place looks a little updated compared to how we last looked at it, maybe we need to do an added assessment and beef up the added assessment on that property. So there'll be other uses for this. So, when you think about, will we probably keep this for years? I think that there's usefulness of what the data they can provide us. There'll be tools that we'll be able to utilize.
No,
it for.
I agree. I wasn't saying you shouldn't, I just was asking the question, because maybe there'd be a discount the second year is what I'm.
No, the cost is really, in other words, when they came and demoed us, they already had it.
Did they?
They
Yeah,
showed you another.
Yeah, it was really impressive.
They
It
have
was.
it for other towns already, because
Sorry, Seth.
when they go out there, they're searching it. So they're already grabbing all that data. and it's just sitting there.
And-
They're just
and
waiting
they
for
just-
somebody to say, hey, let's
And they're not,
use the data.
and it's not just whether or not they're renting, it's whether they have 10 bedrooms versus.
Well, yes, Russ. So the information to how much people charge per night based on which month. The other thing is that was interesting about it was what they said is, a lot of times rentals go on and they might be on during, they'll put them on over a weekend and they take them off during the week. They're doing this 24/7. The other thing is they said sometimes when you're looking at things in the beginning of the season, people wait till the end of the season to put their properties up, or vice versa. They're renting in the beginning of the season, but they're not renting. So this is a constant look by this company. I mean, that's what the analytics are. I mean, it's just constantly, and it's looking at over 10,000 websites. So it is very diversified, and it provides a lot of data. So it's very sensitive from that perspective, that it's not something we want to publicly
And it
display.
gives us a tool to get to a point where we capture 100% of the rental market.
Absolutely, yep. Because
You're
it's
never
every
going to capture
website.
100%. We're never going to capture
it's
100%.
But
We're
close.
going to.
Closer than
we're
we
gonna-
are now.
We're going to be better than what we are now,
Right,
but
that's
I'm never going to say we're going to be 100% compliant. That's
That'll be
just
for
not
the-
really.
That'll be in recognition of the people who have complied with everything we've asked them to do.
Yep.
There are going to be X number of properties that are going to have to be pulled in a little bit.
Because you're always going to have those transit, like, people that buy, sell, transfer.
Yep.
There's always going to be gaps in.
Or
in when
decided
you
they
guys-
never rent it before, and now they're going to for some portion of the season, or, whatever their
And
economics
the
are.
interface to the taxation profile is a very important thing.
Oh,
Russ,
yeah.
having
It's,
spent,
it's a tool.
having
It's just a tool in this
line by
toolbox.
line for 2 years, okay, it's a very dynamic database, meaning there's constantly properties coming in and out. People change their mind, properties change hands. So the 40 or 50 properties a year that could fall through the cracks, it's worth continuing the service.
So, but does what does Atlantic City use them for? Did
The
they
same
get
exact thing.
into, not into enforcement, though,
Now,
or
so they,
collecting, or?
what they do offer is a component that says that they will follow up on whether, identify a property, Mike, and it doesn't have a mercantile license, but it's been proven to require one based on this local ordinance. They will send notifications out on your behalf if you want.
Okay.
We talked about that, but it wasn't, well, at this point in time, since it's new to the city, we really wanted to sort of, get the education piece out there, the notification, keep it in-house. But that's to the extent that they would do, just. send
And not
you out.
beyond that?
Nothing beyond that. They don't have enforcement
yeah.
personnel, locally doing anything. Because Atlantic City was the closest one, and
That's
I
what
don't
I'm
think there
looking
was one
for.
again until upstate New York, right?
Upstate New York,
They're
Massachusetts.
concentrated up in New England. They're out of Boston, I think, and then they are all over the country. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
that's great. I just wanted to make a comment, too, that the city's done an excellent job of actually getting this thing up and running. It's the thing we've always wanted to have as part of our proposal. And there's been a lot of press on it on Facebook. I don't know if everybody goes on Facebook, but there was a post on Facebook about Zach's presentation on the TV screen. It got a lot of press. And that's the thing I sent around to the committee.
Right.
Just for your information, not to do anything about it, but I thought that was very interesting, the number of people who actually got on board with this thing. The Facebook post had 327 people who like what Zach was talking about. And there's always going to be a lot of malcontents on Facebook.
I thought what was most interesting was Martin was an all-star contributor. I
Yes,
don't know if
he
you
is
know
an
that.
all-star contributor to the Facebook page, Martin.
There was actually a suggestion today that we don't need the software, we should just rat on our neighbors.
yeah, I did see that with a bounty on it.
Okay, great, thanks a lot.
Any other questions? We're
Anybody
good?
else have any questions?
I just had one question.
You're blowing off of your shoulders.
How's the transition to bedrooms going?
Yeah,
So we mostly have been focusing on the switching to electronic distribution and this software. So we did add a space for new applications, for new applicants coming in to put the number of bedrooms. There was no way to include that on the invoices that were already
Got it.
going out
Okay.
because it hasn't existed
Future
yet.
plan.
So yeah, that's something that, if that's the city's will, I can.
But with this software, they have the bedrooms there, so we can,
Yes.
we can probably do some merging of our fields
The
and.
license fee being based on number of bedrooms as opposed to square footage.
No, I understand that, but this computer software, because the real estate market provides that bedroom count on the units, we can use that data
In the future.
to populate our database, and then when we change your ordinance, we can then use that data to
Right.
use as a baseline and essentially tell them, this is how many bedrooms
Right.
You're advertising.
that you're advertised for, this is what we're charging, and then we can
Right.
start the conversation
Have
at that
that
point.
discussion.
So we didn't have to really have to do a hard ask, because we're going to have that information on the
Anyway,
computer.
Right.
I was referring to the changeover of the fee structure itself.
We'll look
as
at
a
that.
future task.
Yeah, that's a future task,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, that's a crosswalk we have to do in the system. And so this year, getting an electronic version out to people, being able to take a lot of electronic payment in, and bringing the software on board were really the primary focus of what we wanted
Great.
to do, so.
We have had some people utilizing the online payments. I mean, most of them are still mailing everything in, but we've got over $12,000 worth of online payments and just 54 payments online. So people are utilizing that as an option.
Do you know what percentage that is of total? Not a dollar amount, I just mean
well,
of total properties.
It's 54 out of
400. I'm not going to try to do that math on live.
So just by way, and you're using Municipay, right? So just by way of comparison, at my work, we use the same Municipay, and we made that change over 2 years ago. Last year, we soft pedaled it, and only a couple people paid. It was the middle of the cycle. We did it this year, and only about 20% or so
Okay.
paid online. And it's only $1.50 no matter how much you're paying. So
okay.
we're guessing, and I think maybe Kate May would guess the same thing, that it'll take some time.
Yeah.
People are just
Yep.
used to sending that check in every year.
There is a service charge.
right.
that,
Yeah,
some people
which,
don't
so
wanna pay,
people
so-
are discouraged by
Yeah.
that, but yeah.
But
probably-
I think it's encouraging.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Some people are using it. So, and so far, nothing too negative. I mean, people are happy to have that option. They're happy we're moving into
Yeah.
2025,
Right.
slowly but surely.
Yeah.
No, it's a great step forward for
Yep.
both the safety of the people that visit the city and fairness among the property owners.
Yep, absolutely.
And really, thank you, MTRAC, for, doing the deep dive. We knew anecdotally that we had an issue, but really that additional research that you guys did really showed the true numbers, and which really
That was
allowed
a-
us to
yeah.
justify the
Demonstrate and
purchase.
justify being able to
Yes.
get agreement to
So thank
do
you.
it. So Sarah, thank you for your tedious
Yes.
work. Great, yep, yes. You will not have to
Take it
do
from
that
here.
anymore.
We'll get it from here, guys.
All right, Ms.
Okay,
Erin, we
now,
want to make sure you get out of here on
Does
time.
anybody else have anything? Good, well, thanks, Aaron,
All
appreciate
right,
it.
it's been a
And
pleasure,
Paul,
guys.
let me
Thank
ask you a
you.
question. Can you, while you're here, can you give us a brief update on the progress of the city budget for 2025?
Looking to have budget worksheets out to council Friday, and it'll be presented on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, Diane, come on up. Hi, how are you?
The new data has not been released from the state. But we keep track of occupancy tax. And there's two, 1 year at Gateway County.
You may want to turn your mic on, because a lot of what you're saying is really critically important for the public, so.
Thank you.
All right, so,
That's it. Just come on, sit down, get settled in, we'll,
And then you can start, yeah.
okay,
Hi, Diane, nice to meet you.
Dan, I'm sorry, what's the marketing director's name?
Deborah Bass,
BA?
BASS.
Yes, at dinner, yeah.
She heads the
do we
fishing.
pass this
committee.
around?
That's pretty appropriate.
Okay, what, she can come up too.
You can come up, Deb.
Yeah, come on up. Come on up.
So, just
We're
to,
not going to throw anything at you. Okay.
this is the booklet that we gave out last year, the new booklet with all the data, and it will come out in May.
Okay. Now, before we start, make sure everybody knows who Diane Weiland is. She's the genius behind everything that goes on and related to tourism in Cape May County. And you're a total resource for this county. You've been great so far. You'll be
50 years.
50
We started
years.
50 years in last July.
Oh, my God.
I know. Tell me about
Probably no child labor laws.
And we do appreciate you coming down. I think
Yeah.
it's your third visit with us over time, so,
And I like to get people to understand and know what we do and what I say issues are out there
Yeah.
that we can all work together to address. And so if you have any questions you want to start with me, that's fine. If not, I wanted to explain occupancy tax.
okay?
And this sheet tells you Cape May County and what Cape May County paid in occupancy tax. And this compares us with all the counties in the state. Now, we all know occupancy tax and how that works. We know that municipalities can take an extra 3%. Cape May certainly was ahead of everyone in taking advantage of that option. I've been talking to Zach, and he had $4 million last year, so that's pretty impressive. But in last year, Cape May County, 2024, I keep track of this. I have a link to the state treasury. They send it out every month. They're usually about 2 months behind, but we generated over $23 million. If you see that under Cape May, under this, with all the counties. And compare us, the only other one that did better than us was Bergen County. And Bergen County has a lot of chain hotels next to New York and stuff, so they have far more rooms than us. Cape May County has 11,350 rooms in the entire county. We have over 12,000 campsites. So when we look at lodging, that's the only way they can collect the occupancy tax, and that's how we get funded through grants. So I just want to tell the story about Cape May County and the $23 million we generated. That occupancy tax was started in 2005, and it was, that was when the law was signed in, and there was in the law provisions how much goes to support tourism, arts, and history. From day one, even though the verbiage says shall, tourism shall get 76% of the money. We've never gotten 76%. We generated, if you see with the total, all the counties, we generated in total 31, or in the quarters, 193 over here in the end, in 2024 in occupancy tax in all 21 municipalities. The amount that was allocated to all the counties for arts, history, and tourism grants was about $55 million. So where'd the rest of it go? We ask that question all the time. We're never given an answer. And now is the time that we all need to have one voice and work together with our legislators at the state and say, what's up? Why are we not getting our fair share? We're generating $23 million, and we're getting $1.4 million back. Essex County generated $7 million, and they got $9 million back. How's that work? And when you question them, first the guy head of the Assembly Tourism Committee was from Essex County, so,
Gee, what a coincidence.
Imagine that. And when I questioned it, when I was testifying one time, he didn't want to hear it. He did me one of these, like, move on. I thought, you're not giving me the bum's rush. I drove 2 hours to get here. And it's because, then he says, well, we have the Newark Museum. And I said, okay. Well, I can tell you how many people come to Cape May County for a week. Can you, to experience our area, can you tell me how many people go to Newark Museum for a week? I mean, it's a great attraction, there's no doubt about it, but you're not generating what we are. Then they have Paper Mill Playhouse. Many nights are dark, but they're getting $1 million right off the top. Then there's the New Jersey Ballet, beautiful, but they don't come down here. So, we can tell you all this, and that's what I have done for 50 years. It's a science to me. I spend all the time, So I think what we're working on now with our legislators, and hopefully with a new governor coming, whatever, the results of that are going to be, we need to make that an issue, that we're not getting our fair share. We're generating $23 million, and 22 of it's going to other counties to support their arts, history, and tourism, or going into the black hole that's supporting we don't even know what. But on the backs of art visitors that we all work hard to get, and then the hoteliers who have to collect it, we don't even have enough money to adequately market the county, the hotels, the overnight stays. And nobody's getting it without an overnight stay. You're not collecting it.
Could I ask a question? Who makes a decision on how the money is allocated?
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. And the tourism committee, or the assembly committee, has said that that there was a breakdown, but that Southern New Jersey should get more money because they're real tourism. And my whole question has been, business tourism in North Jersey, Bergen County, is great, but they're coming for business and leaving. They're not off to going out to the restaurants because they're provided with conventions and stuff like that. But we're pure tourism. This is all we have. 59% of the jobs in Cape May County are tourism related. And we're generating—
What was that again?
59%. In here, you will see a chart that gives you the breakdown of, and that would be on page 8. So you have a listing and kind of a breakdown. So when we get the information from the state, I break it down to the county. So on page 8, you'll see what I'm talking about. Visitor-supported jobs are 31,325. Total jobs that they have that are, it's hard for me to define what's tourism-related and what isn't, because the gas stations get, more business in the summer, My son wore a hearing aid. The guy at the hearing aid shop said, we sell more batteries in the summer, so are you tourism or aren't you tourism? So it's hard to really define, but those are the numbers that we get from the state. And I think when you look at last year, it was $7.7 billion that Cape May County generated from visitor spending, $7.7 billion. We were second next to Atlantic City, which was $8.1 billion. And the Atlantic County used to double Cape May County. So they've lost and we've gained. So that's, we're second highest in the state. But when you look at the state and local tax that are, from tourism that we pay, it's $637.5 million in state and local tax. Cape May County is sending to Trenton $1.75 million a day, 365 days of the year, based on tourism expenditures. These are the state numbers, so I like to throw them back at them. And people find that just amazing, that how much money in taxes that we send to Trenton, and then it's always a fight. There's no money for roads and bridges and things like that. So why not? So when we look at visitor volume, we're second in the state next to Atlantic County. Atlantic County had 22 million visitors. We had 11. So we had half, except they're spending more money here because we're 7.7 billion and they're 8.1. So when you look at almost 11.6 million visitors to Cape May County in 1 year, when are they coming? Mostly during the summer.
Let me ask you a question here. Clearly, Cape May's industry is tourism. Is there a second or third industry in Cape May?
Commercial fishing.
Okay.
Commercial fishing. In 1984, the state gave us a grant through the EDA to help support the fishing industry, the commercial fishing industry, because tourism was starting to, get beyond fishing, which was the biggest one. We have a loan program that we started, and Deb is working with that, because her name's Bass, wasn't that a good? But, so we started with $500,000 to start this program. All the beach counties were each given the same amount of money to promote and increase commercial fishing. We're the only ones that have a program left. They all went bankrupt. They all loaned money to people who didn't pay. We have over $1 million in the account. We have more than $1 million like out on the street in loans. And we help the commercial fishing industry. We've added oyster industry as one of the latest things that are included in it. So, that is our second largest industry. We certainly support it. We help all of the boats, not the small charter boats. You have to have a subchapter T, captain's license if you're recreation, so it's really making an impact. But that is really where we are. Other than that, government is an industry.
There are some that claim that Cape May has always been a year-round destination because of the fishing.
Exactly. And you go back to 1642, and how did they come here? Why did they come here? Fishing and agriculture. And now you turn back around, fast forward 350 years, and it's still fishing and agriculture. So we promote.
And retail is probably related to tourism as well.
Yeah, retail is. And the other would be what's continually growing is the pharmaceutical medical,
Oh, right.
because we have an aging population. So because we have about 23% of our residents are 65 and over, that's the industry. I know.
Diane, how's Mike Testa helping you?
He listens. We give him all of our information. We share it with him. He goes out and speaks to it. But now we're all ready to get on board. You're running? Let's get this occupancy tax an issue, because it's not only Cape May County, but he's got Cumberland County. Cumberland County gets more than they produce. And so we try to be nice, but it's still on the list. They're getting more. I can't change that fact. And Salem County is also. Atlantic County, they're not getting the money that we're getting. I have a chart that I did not bring, but tells you, it's this long, because we want to see how much did you get in arts grants, how much did you get in tourism and in history, and then what is your total revenue spending. What did you get? And some of them are getting more than 100% back. There's at least 3 of them. And then there's one that Mike Testa did not know. And they have a little category on their listing called Other. So what's Other? Nobody knew. You know what it is? They give grant dollars to New York because New Jersey people go there. They generated 0 in occupancy tax. They get more than we do. They get 1.9 million, we get 1.4. Does that even make sense? And anybody, if you would say it, why would you give them money? And they're getting arts money and they're getting tourism grant dollars.
So the question is, what can we do?
And I think we all need to stand as one voice, and that's what I'm trying to put together. I've been out on medical leave, so I kind of took it, took a break from it. I never take a break, but now it's time that we all work together. So that's why I'm glad to speak to your group, because I'm trying to get out there. I've got a conference coming up at the chamber,
I was going to say, and Diane comes to the League of Municipalities, has done the same presentation.
Yeah.
And probably maybe 2 or 3 months ago, if I recall.
I think
maybe
December.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so I do credit.
But it's just a matter of, my feelings are awareness, and then let's all come together and be the voice that says something's wrong and we need to make some adjustments. My commissioner is Linda Zadario. He's a businessman in tourism. He's like, whenever you're ready to strike, let me know. But, we have to feed that information and make sure everybody sees it and understands it. And that's why I have this spreadsheet. It talks about, return on investment. We're bringing in 11.6 million people, and we're seeing that they're bringing in 3 million, and they're getting more than we're getting. There are also a concern of mine is, if you're not true tourism, why are you getting it? You might have some great attractions, but why are you in the same level as us? And it's a competitive application. So how do you, there are people out there spending money for international travel. And they go to these shows, and they're costly. The IPW, which is the International Powwows in Chicago next month, it's like $15,000 to go there. You know what you're bringing back? This in New Jersey. They're not coming. When the state gives you a number, when they give the report, and they're not moving the needle on international. The other concern we have when they talk about Canadian, they're spending money in Canada, they're not going to North Jersey. We don't know if they're coming here either, but that's to be determined. But, so they give money, and I don't think that the people who are making the decision have any idea that they're not generating where the money comes from, and that they're not showing any kind of return on investment. So that's, each one of the arts, history, and tourism have their own. The Arts Council, the Historic Trust.
And they all go independent of each other to the
Yeah.
Appropriations
And
Committee.
if you ask them, do you know how much money we generated? No, they don't know, nor do they care. Now we have this arts group that is new people, as they retire, they bring new people in, and they're changing the rules. We get $200,000 as a re-grant program that we have to grant out to our members. And if we have 20 people or we have 15 people, it's still $200,000. They have now changed the rules for whatever reason that municipal, church, schools can't apply. And it can only be nonprofits. Now, you take a look, I get the nonprofit thing, but if you look at municipalities and they're putting, movies on the beach or free concerts, they're bringing thousands of people, and they're going to eliminate that. And there are some that just happen to have an affiliation with, say, Cape Christian Academy, which is not really affiliated with the religion. It's just that their foundation is to, Christian beliefs and stuff. They're going to eliminate them. But they're supplying arts education to kids, and anyone can participate in it. So they don't take a look at it. They go across the board, this is what we're doing. Now, we might have a group that is, nonprofit, the Puerto Rican Action Committee. They're very active, but they're not bringing what the municipalities are bringing for reach and accessibility and, underserved, because they are free concerts. But now that's the new rule. So, you're probably going to get the same amount of money. I'm waiting for that one because I'm pretty sure.
It's interesting to me because I've had conversations with Jeff Vassar, who constantly holds Cape May out as the model that everyone else should be following.
Yes.
Will his retiring result in potential window for us to maybe make some progress?
Well, I don't know, because he worked hard for us. We are also the Department of Tourism, but we are the DMO, the Destination Marketing Organization, which gives us more dollars. And he does, like every DMO should operate like you, because we operate like county government. We're not giving you a receipt on the back of a cocktail napkin. We have purchase orders, we follow the rules. And he'll say that, people can only do what you do. We don't go to these international shows because we don't have the money to do that. And when there's no return on investment. And when we went to 2 of them, we thought, I haven't moved the needle, and not one Canadian tour operator came to see us. So, we've got the state doing German. The Canadian agency they use is in Ontario. 99% of our visitors are from.
So you're saying there actually is a risk in the turnover of the position that we could lose funding?
Yes, because we don't know who they're bringing in.
Right.
Is it someone from North Jersey who thinks it's all about?
How can Cape May send a delegation to talk with that director when he or
Well,
she is
that's what
named?
we're going to try to do.
Okay.
We want to have a great, and the people that are there, the marketing director, who's now acting director, he gets us, He knows that when we talk, it's not, oh, look at me, we just, at a show, booked 80 rooms. Well, they're booking 80 rooms for people to come to shop at outlets at no tax. How does that help everybody else, So we want to be able to say, first off, let's define tourism. Is it leisure, is it business?
So Treasury collects the money. What agency in the state government is responsible for the distribution of that money?
The Treasury then gives money, X amount of dollars, to arts. I think it's $191 million.
And what department is that located in?
That's the.
The state?
Yeah, it's the Council of the Arts, which is part of the state, a division. And then tourism goes through the Office of Travel and Tourism, that's $25 million. That went
That's-
up from 17, and they thought we should all celebrate.
And that's not, what department's that located in?
No. And that's what now I'm sending out, and we're working, even with Atlantic County, we had a meeting, say, here's the bill, read it. Here's what we got. Here's your chart. Atlantic County is also not receiving a fair share. You know, why don't you give us 20%? That's pretty much an average. Give us 20%, we'll be, you know, of what we had. I don't want 6%. I don't think that's fair. And they had a bill that they were going to, out there, and I testified on the Senate and the Assembly side, and they all agreed it was passed, it sat on the governor's desk. It was called the County Tourism Incentive Grant. So their verbiage was, we're going to take excess and divide it among all the counties that have a tourism office. Well, I'm thinking, do they know there's only 5 counties in the entire state that have a tourism office? And we're one of them. Well, it turns out their definition of excess was somebody predetermined. Well, we thought you were going to generate, you know, say 190 million, and you generated 193 million. Excess is that 3, and now we're going to never pass the governor's desk. So, you know, it was like something that you would get a little bit back for your work, because there's no incentive to work harder, you know, if you're not going to get the money. So we just kind of blow that off. We have to work harder. So that's where we are, and we're moving, getting the chambers together, getting, you know, Atlantic County Chamber was the one who asked, you know, they have no idea. Nobody takes this information. Like, you get these grants and you don't know how much you generated, and you're just all smiles because, well, if I was Essex, I'd be keeping everybody quiet. But, you know, how do people get more than they gave? How does our dollars generated on the backs of our visitors that we marketed to go to somewhere else who
But this
can't
is-
prove a return?
I don't mean to interrupt, but this is where I wish, not that that I'm looking for more of Dennis's charts, but this is where I'd love to see a chart that sort of says, funds come in, and this is how they go out, and these are the decision makers.
Well, and I can send
And
the
to
big
a certain
chart
extent, because
that I have.
otherwise, if we can't get to the people to make the decisions, then we're not
Yeah.
going to change. I mean,
And
it's
that's-
the definition of insanity.
This is the second year of the big chart, where it shows every penny that came in. And it's not, like, you can look online and find out how much the Arts Council got and how they divvied it out. But that that always, like, what's other? It's going outside the state.
Can you break down the county number by municipality? Like, could we know how much Cape May City sent in?
They don't give that to us. They claim they don't have it. We all know there's a code. Everybody's, you know.
They don't have it.
Well, they don't want to give it to us. The whole link to get to this information, I got by accident many, many years ago in a thread when it was Assemblyman or Senator Van Drew, and there it was. Click, it's the state.
Yeah, we have a code.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago, I did have a woman in the Treasury who got me that code
Yeah.
also. She's not there anymore.
Well, I still have the code, but it's not, they do not break it down. We've asked them, we can't do that, and I know they can. They know, when you put in your county code or your city code or whatever, but yeah. So there's a lot of questions, and way more questions than I have for people who deal, you know, with the filing and all that, but
See, they do know the code because they send us back our 3%.
your municipality,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they know where to send it to.
And
They-
more municipalities are jumping onto that. Ocean City is working on that. I know Middle Township.
That's a question I had. Cape May, as you mentioned, sort of led the way with this occupancy tax, the local tax. Lower Township picked it up as well.
Yeah.
Nobody else is picking it up? Well, Wildwood can't.
No, because they already have
They
the
have their own
blind
deal.
tax.
But-
You cannot add more than 14% tax. So if you have the tourism tax and
Yeah.
they're paying probably 3%.
Yeah, they have their own authority.
Yeah.
But the other towns,
Middle Township just started a year or so ago in anticipation of the Hampton Inn.
yes.
And now that seems to be moving forward. Ocean City has that on, you know, they're working on that right now to get the 3%. Ocean City's issue is they don't have really a lot of hotels, so they're going after the B&Bs as well.
I see. Okay. All right, good.
So,
You mentioned Canada. in the Herald, saw some data this week that both flights booked from Canada to the U.S. and border crossings are down significantly.
Yes.
What's the latest that you're hearing?
Well, first off, we're a drive destination. They're not booking flights. Where are they flying into? Philly? Because there's nothing in Atlantic City. It used to be, that didn't work. And the border crossings, where are they, what border are they crossing? I had somebody send me one for British Columbia. Trust me, they're not coming across the British Columbia. They come to Cape May County. And they come in June, July, and August. So show me the numbers for June, July, and August. I can tell you, and I've done extensive research, their economy was hurting them, and they were changing their vacation patterns long before the first of the year. And the exchange rate hovers between 68 and 70%. So you've been impacted, they've been impacted. Gasoline, they sell by the liter. Last week when I checked, it was $1.95 a gallon. They're paying $7.12 for it. I mean, a liter.
A liter.
Liter. For a gallon, $7.12 for a gallon of gas. So that's impacting everything they do. Their core living expenses, just like ours, their cost of a dozen eggs, if that's what you want to measure it by, is equal to ours. They have a goods and service tax. And with the goods and service and the provincial tax, they're paying 14%. That's on utilities, that's on groceries. Certain groceries are not included, but it's on restaurants, it's on clothing. So they've been impacted since COVID, they haven't recovered. So they're impacted every day of the year. So that reduces their discretionary income for vacations. Then you go to the border and you lost about a third of your value of your money. They're losing 30 cents on every dollar. They were comfortable up until it gets to about 75 cents. So, they're getting, losing 25. In the 1970s, when we were really doing a lot of marketing, it was par. Then it would slip up, move up to 3, they're losing 3%, 5%. But when they're losing 30 cents, and people, we went to a travel show 2 weeks ago, and there were a couple who were, screaming, "We hate the orange man." But they were going to every U.S. booth to say that. But others said, "We can't afford it." And we've had cancellations. I've talked to largest campground, Scott Turner. He keeps, great books. We share our numbers. He said, yeah, he's had cancellations at the campground. But he said, it's almost like you get a cancellation and 2 people call and make a reservation. So he said, we're not feeling that crunch yet. A person in Wildwood Crest, 2 hotels, she said, we're 85% booked for the season. Yes, she had 4 cancellations, spoke to every one of them. These people have been coming 10 years or longer to their hotel, and they said, we can't afford it. We have been impacted. It's been, ongoing, and then you lose the money at the border. So I know that there's anger. I know that there's, all this going on that we don't know what's going to happen, but they were already canceling. They were already, and they're promoting staycations. They claim that snowbirds spend about $650 billion to come to the U.S. Well, they're not coming here, snowbirds, because we're technically not really open for them. But when you think there's 17 states across the border and they're stopping that, a lot of them just came over to shop because there's no tax on clothing, or things were less costly. But, we're waiting it out. I always do a big campaign with CAA, which is the Canadian Automobile Association, and it's about a $10,000 buy. And now with the exchange rate, it was 79, so I was all smiles. I get a letter, everything. They had the insertion, they had the purchase order, they had the artwork, came back and said, our company will not advertise any U.S. business. Now, if you look through their book or online, I would say more than a third of them are U.S. Destinations. And we do it because we're a drive destination, it's a drive publication. And they refused it. So then I tried with the radio station we always had, and they added $976 tariff on. After we talked about it, then they added the tariff. I thought, well, I'm not advertising, because I'm afraid if we advertise, we incite these, angry people, and we get more nasty. So,
So your sense is that whether it's exchange rate or political backlash,
Yeah.
we'll see fewer Canadian tourists,
will.
but they'll be replaced by other people because of the
It seems like
opening.
they are, and I take random, we have a lot of businesses who we call our stakeholders and what's up.
Yep.
Of course, we don't know restaurants or anything like that, but we know that they look for, they're very value conscious, and when they get here, it's more casual dining than the fine dining. But we also know that there are still some that aren't canceling. And at the show, they're coming up, we gave out same amount of literature this year as we did last year. And the thing that we need to keep in mind is that the border was closed 2 seasons over COVID, 2021, 20 and 21. And as soon as they opened in November, by December, we had a full campaign, and we have not fully recovered from COVID. We're about 96% recovered. So now we're going to see it go down, but we still want them here. They become friends and like family to a lot of the businesses. They return to the same places. They make the reservation before they leave to come back the next year. You see their children grow up, so you don't want to see them go. But I'm not sure that, judging by border crossings or air service, that it's going to affect us.
Did you have a sense of what percentage of our market is Canadian?
Yes, it's 7% in July and August of our visitor base. And we do our own surveys, and you'll see a survey in here, but last year we specifically targeted, during COVID, the Canadian. At last 5 questions, we always take the topic of the year and just specifically ask questions to our.
And is that tourism spend or number of tourists, the 7%?
Number of tourists, yeah. And we get a lot of information. We were getting a lot of information from the consulate's office in Canada, and they would spend about $169 million for overnights. So, and we don't get the day trippers, so we just look at the overnight stuff. And the advantage of a Canadian visitor is they tend to stay longer. They have that 2 weeks holiday. I always say the further you drive, the longer you stay. So they're not coming for a weekend. So when we're doing fall and winter marketing, we don't worry about Canadians. We kind of stay in that 300-mile radius. But, we're going to have to see how it goes. But we're still hearing the Wild Crest Hotel said we haven't gotten all of them canceled, 4 or 5. But
So if you had to pick 2 stat lines to assess the tourism industry, visitors would be one, and dollars spent would be
yes,
another.
and that's, yeah.
Now, do you see, are there any trends in either of those 2 numbers? Are they up, down?
What we're seeing is an increase in fall and winter visitors, which is about 15% for winter increase over the years. So we're doing more marketing. We have a full marketing, slug of money for fall and winter. What we're seeing as trending is, and I read about the trends and how do we fit. If the trend is snow skiing, we're out. But if the trend is beaches, we need to target those people. What we're seeing is that bucket list is back that people want to do, and a lot of it's got to do with nature, outdoors, birding, camping, the road trip, they call it, so people don't want to do as much as the tours, the bus tours, motor coach, and stuff like that, because they want to be able to stop along the way and enjoy, wherever they're, maybe they're going to stay overnight, maybe it's a couple hours, but that's a huge trend, and I think it's, kind of from the COVID being kind of locked in, let's go, we're going to come to see the ocean, but we're not going, we're going to stop at different places. So that's been a trend for the past 3 years. So, and we're also seeing that they want to travel during fall and winter. Spring and summer, we kind of lump that together. We're seeing a lot more people coming in the spring. The other trend that we're seeing is the second homeowner. about half of our dwellings in Cape May County are considered second homes or vacation homes. About 53% of them rent them out at some time, either fully for income or whenever they want to, not
Do you have a spreadsheet on that?
on the second homeowners.
On that ratio you just talked about?
We have an older one, but we haven't done that. We have to work with the tax office to get, and we basically get that done by county tax office. Where do you send your bill outside of Cape May County, which is all
Right,
zip coded and stuff. Yeah, it's time to do that, and so we will do it, but they were the numbers of who rents them. And because then we could send them the survey. A lot of people don't want to do a survey, and they don't want to give you their email address. So it's either a paper survey that, some kind of incentive, what will give you, a pen or, something.
Well, tourism generates the revenue within Cape May County. The shore towns are probably, the beach towns are probably the source of the revenue, a lot of the revenue
Yeah.
that comes into the county. How does that translate in terms of the county operating budget?
The county operating budget, we don't really get the money from the expenditures. It's the house sales, transfers, things like that. That's the county clerk, and she has a pretty good handle on that, and we can get that information from that talks about that. That's what helps the county. But the tourism in general is just the businesses, more people paying taxes, affording to pay the taxes, that kind of stuff. So we don't, while we're the number one industry, we're considered discretionary. They don't need us. But they keep us. But, people do have to have the tax office, the sheriff's office, and things like that.
Well, it kind of seems to me that you talked earlier about the disparity of fund distribution versus fund source in the occupancy tax. I'm interested to know your sense of whether or not that disparity exists at the county level within the county budget. In other words, lots of revenue comes to the county from the tourism centers. Are we getting back our proportionate share of services from the county?
Our Board of Commissioners has been very generous to tourism because we can show them the numbers. And, you're allowed to raise it 2%. So it's not hard to raise it 2% when you see the prices going up for advertising. But they do support, and they use our information for a lot of other things that they're doing, grants that they do, things like that, any other programs, how it impacts. Like, we already know that when the fuel tax, excise tax comes through, and Cape May County is generating all this money, we always get the short end of the stick. And that's the whole thing that we're working on as, it's not only just us, it's, the county engineer isn't getting grant dollars back in proportion to what the county.
Maybe we should just take our cut before we send the money.
Well, that's what. Yeah, and then come after us. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think that it's definitely, everybody needs to be aware. We'll keep the numbers out there, and then as one group, one voice, and say, explain this. You're our legislators, where does this come from?
Now, is there a movement to organize the municipalities?
Yes, that's why I spoke at the League of Municipalities. Most of them there were like, I never heard this before. I didn't know that this was, what was happening. And now we're seeing now with the internal grants that they're going to not fund a lot of these organizations. A lot of we know if, and I'm going to say, why would Crest put in the art pavilion? They get 10,000 or more people coming through there, who it gives them an extra activity. Maybe they're going to stay another night because they're participating or they want to be part of it. The movies on the beach, the free concerts that the towns have, they all bring a lot of people to the area, and that might be and the survey will tell you, why did you come for a special event? A lot of them do. But we're seeing that the trend is, and you'll see it here, the outdoors, the wineries, the agriculture, farm to table, the fishing industry. So that they call it local culture. What makes so different than being in the city or being, in other areas. And that's attracting more and more people. And when we market, that's what we're marketing. We market that we're authentic, that we're pure, that we're, what's our slogan again? Authentically charming, sincerely yours. Because nobody had to build it. We're not Disney, they didn't have to build it. Even if you go to Williamsburg, a lot of those are reconstructed rather than restored. And there's a lot of interest if people want to see the actual thing. So of course, Cape May is a big part of it, but Doo-Wop in Wildwood, what we now mid-century, that's of interest too, because now the older people they remember, So there's a lot of the charm that we have that's real. If you go to Seattle, if you go to Avalon or Stone Harbor, if you go to Ocean City, there's authentic charm. It's, people want to see it. They want to be part of that local culture. If it's sitting at the fishing docks and having lunch, and that could be in Seattle, it could be in Avalon, it could be right here. That's what people are looking for, and we're seeing that, and that's what we're targeting. That, history is great, but we're talking more about the authentic charm that each town has, and that can draw people of different interest. And our digital ads, we can kind of pinpoint, through the demographics we get from our, digital marketing, TV. We have a big buy with NBC right now, and they're giving us all kinds of good stuff because they want us, but we're getting good coverage on streaming, because they're trying to build their streaming. So we're buying broadcast or linear, and they're giving us a lot more on streaming, and we're getting a lot more response. So you get a report, and they'll tell you where how long they watched your commercial, where they're coming from, and so that allows us to kind of target with a different message. Is it the message of the beach? Maybe not so. Maybe it's the message of dining or wineries or, history. So we are looking at how the trends are changing and how our visitors' opinion has changed.
So what is your prognosis for this year?
We're already seeing that we're up in occupancy tax for '24 over '23, and it's 5% we're up. We try to factor out increased cost to just the overnight stays. Then we'll start to get other information. I think we're going to remain soft, but still increase. And we have been soft since, we recovered, we're the first ones to recover after COVID. And we've continued to grow.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that those years are right. You're seeing an increase in '24 over '23,
Yes.
not '25 over '24?
No, we don't have 25 debt. Yeah, but the only thing I have for '24 is occupancy, because I can track it. If I have to wait for the state, it's not coming out until May. And then I'll be able to I'm the one that likes to peel the onion, and see and get these numbers that they don't give you, it's not flashing, you gotta look it up. And you gotta have the, personnel and the willingness to take and dissect those numbers that they give us. But it gives a benchmark. So we are seeing 24 as we have an increase. I think when we get to 24 numbers from the state, we're going to see an equal 4 or 5% increase. We used to have 11%, but it's still an increase where others are showing a decrease. The other beach counties, I have to tell you, are not doing well. Monmouth County's not doing well. And if you just look at some of their numbers just from the occupancy.
14 million.
Ocean County is really, they're one of the largest counties, but with Sandy, ever since Hurricane Sandy, a lot of their lodging side turned into permanent housing. And they don't have the hotels, they're losing hotels. And so they're way off from what we are. They get more money than we do, but in their occupancy and generate less. But I will tell you that it's Atlantic County. I mean, we just read that their gaming's down 9% over last year. So, we're the strong ones. Except, there's that Bergen County, but they have triple the hotel rooms we have.
Right.
Diane, this is a little bit off that whole track, but looking at the survey, That's on your website. I'm sure it's
That's
probably in here.
this, yeah.
This survey, how are you getting it? Who are you giving the
It's
paper
very,
to?
we've sent it out to about 3,400 emails that we have that we can collect. These are the people who have contacted us and we've captured their email. They've contacted our office, some of them are doing, our advertising, and then they ask for more information and we're able to get it. They came to our website. We take it at travel shows, we can get email address of people who want more. Because we don't want to just say we're only going to survey those people who answer our ads. That's kind of skewed a little. So we try to get it beyond that. And working with information from social media, that's where we get the emails.
I think what I was curious about was, do you think you get a representative cross-section of people that
get
come to
between 20
rent a
yeah.
home, though, as opposed to going to a hotel, motel?
Well, that's why we try to reach out through those other mechanisms. And the concern, second homeowners aren't, they're already here, they don't need more information.
Right,
But
right.
that's why we try to reach as many places in as many ways as we can. Not perfect, but we get about, I think last year we had a 26% return rate. I mean, they say a sample of 5% is adequate, so we surpass that to get the data that we do here. Again, I use it as a benchmark.
I think it's incredible. It's a lot like a demographic that we know, which is that the age of 54 to 71 is 38%, 72 and over is another 12 points. You're looking at well over
More than half,
50%
more than half are.
are 54 and over.
And that's why we continue to use newsprint, we continue to use TV, we continue to use radio, and we're seeing that more and more getting on the social media. So Facebook is one of the fastest growing 55-plus demographic, but it's expensive, and we hear all the time, we don't do print, we just do, we're missing more than 50% of our visitors if we don't give them the information in the format that they want. And one of the questions here, how do you like to receive your information? And we're seeing it go down a little, that, print and radio and TV, the traditional is kind of slipping, but we also know that we need to target our customer, all of them. And if we leave 50% of our visitors out of the loop of what we have, we've shot ourselves in the foot.
Well, and your visitors in Cape May City, for sure, the visitors coming here, a large percentage of them come through real estate agents and property rentals rather than hotels or.
Yes, especially Cape May, Ocean City is the same.
Same way. Now, do you have a way to get the real estate agencies to help you distribute?
We have literature and we use them as our, stakeholders, how's it looking? And we can find out from, their reservations, what's happening, and we reach out to them as well to.
Maybe when you rent something from a real estate agent, give them a copy of your survey to answer that.
Well, a lot of them come to our conference to get this information. Others call and say, can you mail it? So the book is getting around. So we do reach out to as many businesses. We like to hear from restaurants. What are the trends? How do we, get more people into your restaurant? What are we doing? One of the trends that we just found out last year was a lot of people aren't eating 3 meals a day. They're doing early lunch, late breakfast, and dinner. And sometimes it's pizza. We're hearing from hoteliers are saying that our recycle has, tripled in the amount of trash they're taking out because they're buying takeout pizza and things like that. So that's a different trend for restaurants to understand, And so when we look at, I feel like I get a report from the MUA on flushes, and they all laugh because I have the flush report, but we can compare year to year how many people are flushing and the water usage, month to month, year to year. I get traffic count from the ferry. I get traffic counts from the Garden State Parkway, the Cape May and the Great Egg. We get that report. So we try to track everything and see if it's all working together. Is something way out of, but you know, that kind of gives you the idea that, okay, we're okay, or we're a little scary. The ferry's up. They just sent their final for December. Parkway, it's hard.
That Flushing report, I'm glad nobody in the committee picked up on the opportunity to make a little pun out of that.
Well, especially 56 and over.
Or the quality of your returns might be,
But
never mind.
you know, it's always, I don't include that in any of my stuff, but I do look to see if it's consistent with everything year to year. But I mean, if there's a report out there, I want to see it. I want
Yeah.
to see what's happening July, August, you know, September, October starts to die off, but we've had, in July and August, our occupancy tax was over $5 million for July and August. And you'll see it on the county, on this county list here. So July and August, 5 million for the second year in a row for just each of those months. Nobody in the state comes even close to that. So when we look at the July, even into September, then all of a sudden it kind of shuts down in September, October. We're seeing an increase in December because all the different municipalities have great holiday events. But we're not seeing occupancy tax as much as we're seeing second homeowners who are coming to take advantage of that. So, you know, as far as what I'm seeing for 2025, I think it's going to be soft, but we're still going to see an increase. A lot of times with occupancy tax pretty much correlates with what the state, we're going to see that 7.7 billion increase on expenditures.
It'd be interesting to see how these numbers compare to Cape May's numbers, too.
Yeah, that's what we need to look at, you know, to see how, you know, the mayor said, I said, I don't get the, you know, municipal numbers, and he said, we're 4 million. I said, well, I don't ask, you know. If you want to tell me, that's fine, but, you know, I kind of stay in my own.
Well, I don't see why we don't. We're pretty proud of that number, actually.
Exactly, and you should be. But we're seeing more and more of, you know, the concern of the sales of the bed and breakfast to be private homes. That's a concern. I look at, you know, we need more hotels. When we used to have 18,000 rooms, and now we're 11,350 rooms in the county. And what I look at over the years is you come a week and you do all the activities. And then the next group comes in and they do all that. If you're staying or you own the house, you're doing those maybe once. You become complacent, but we need these weekly hotel rentals that help us, help all the businesses. You want to go to your favorite restaurant, the boardwalk, you know, shopping. But the next group, you want them to do it too, instead of saying, I already did that, I'm staying 2 weeks, but I did that, so I'm not going to go back. So that's the concern that I have. I know Ocean City has lost a lot of their hotels. And I know the Icona property is a big issue with their rooms, but overall, we need more hotels.
Well, the universe of visitors is shifting away from hotels into homes and and whole house rentals,
Rentals, yeah.
sleeps 25 kind of thing. And
In fact, Dennis, when you look at this data, the occupancy tax for December is very low relative to the amount
Considering how many people.
relative to the amount of business that we have here in Cape May.
Yeah.
They're not staying in hotels.
right,
And hotels are changing into condos. Wildwood Crest is a perfect example. A lot of their hotels are now condos, so,
yeah, we have a couple of those here.
right. So you're seeing fewer rooms that are, you know, not paying the occupancy tax. So, you know, that's all you look at, and you look at the numbers and you say, you know, something, you can kind of figure out what's happening and what's not.
Getting back to the issue of the states cutting into the revenues from the occupancy tax, this committee has been put together to study revenue and sources of revenue and flow and then what that revenue is spent on, used on. What should we recommend to the city council to address that issue that you
I think we
raised?
can all come together and come up with, if it's a group meeting or whatever, with ways to get our dollars back. I mean, if it comes to the DMO, we can do more marketing that you don't have to do. Or we can co-op with you to say, you know, we can help pay for the ads. And, or if we do DMO, which is Destination Marketing Organization, that we get the money, from the, I get cooperative marketing about 20 to 25,000 a year. The DMO gets about 250,000. So we're seeing, we lost 45,000 last year because Jeff Vassar added municipalities instead of counties. That's what we were getting away from, a destination, not a city. So $45,000 is a lot, but we can then do an ad featuring Cape May and just put Southern Shore on the bottom. That's what our intent was, to help each municipality as they market, where they want to market, and what publications, you decide. But we can help by just, we're eligible to do that by just putting the Southern Shore logo on it. So if you lose money, we can't offer those options. And so that's one way that we can help get your message out, and it's your message. We don't control your message, but we do ads right now that feature, the main photo is, it could be anything. It could be the fishing docks, it could be the shopping, it could be Victorian House. And we have our own photographer, and we're to do a professional photographer who goes out and takes photos for us, all for you to use. We have a photo library that we want to share it, and we do share it. And we don't promote individual businesses, but there happened to be a picture of the Washington Street Mall. That's an attraction, and if the photo's there, we're not going to blur out. We want to help the businesses too with the, the grant money that comes from occupancy tax. And our photographer has been working with us 15, 20 years.
So it'd be good if we could then urge the council to increase the level and intensity of interface between
Yeah.
our tourism
And we
section.
work with Casey, but it's a lot of the localized stuff. If we have a journalist who wants to do a story on Cape May, we bring him right to you, And we're meeting with a new German rep next week, Tuesday, and they want to go see Cape May.
Dennis, I think with the change in leadership at the top of at the state level, that's an opportunity for Cape May to send information and make sure that we continue to be seen in a favorable light.
And sending the calendar of events and stuff like that to us, which you are doing, then we get it to the state. And then we also are doing work with the NJ Film Commission. We've got 14 videos that they have approved, so they put it into their database, so there's that opportunity. We have a magazine, The Vacationer, you have an ad in it, but it goes out to 100,000. So the print this year is 100,000, but the downloads on our website, are increasing. So people are downloading your information. Every ad is a live link to.
Vassar's replacement is a governor-appointed position, I believe, correct?
What's that?
Vassar's replacement will be a governor's appointment, I believe.
Yes. And the guy who's doing it now, he was their marketing director, and he's kind of their acting right now. He comes from a New York marketing firm.
Perfect.
He gets it, and he gets us, and he's here.
So when do you expect the new director to be appointed?
I don't know. They can't wait till the election. I think they have to put someone in interim. But because right now is where everything's breaking, got to have your advertising in. But here's a story. They have an agency to represent Canada. Did they call us? We've been advertising and marketing in Canada since 1968. 1970 to 1995, we had our own office, the only county that had an office in international in another country. So they hire an agency who's from Ontario, Discover Travel or something. They're doing ads in Quebec in English. So our PR consultant says, I'm hearing your ads, but they're in English. So you call and say, hey, you really need to do your ads in French. And if you need it translated, the radio station will do it for you, or our PR person. And, oh, no, we're fine. They do them in French. I said, I got someone listening, and they're not in French. So, and if you want the number one station, and they do listen to radio, 88% of people in Quebec speak French. So why would you give them an ad in English? Now with all this political stuff, it only incites them that you don't have the courtesy or respect that you give us your ad in our language. But, you know,
Well,
we're
let me ask-
hoping they have it.
Let me ask you a final question. Do the other shore counties, Monmouth, Ocean, and Atlantic, do they have a Diane Weiland?
They have somebody in Ocean County, but they do economic development as well. And they are new, and they're, you know, a political appointee, and they don't have the they come to me, you know, but yeah. Monmouth County, they no longer have it. They put that all under economic development. And their numbers are bad. They're not generating, they're not advertising, they don't put a budget. I mean, we have a nice budget, we get to increase 2%. I tried to squeeze a little bit more than 2%, but I got my hands smacked. But, you know, yeah, and I've been doing it for 50 years. Like, I don't go home and watch TV, I go home and look for trends or, you know, what kind of stuff I could be doing, putting my booklet together, so,
That's
Yeah.
great, you do a great job.
well, thank you.
Does anybody else have any issues or questions? Flesh out some ideas?
So if the new book will be coming out, we're going to do our conference this year at the Grand
Oh, good.
in May.
There you
So
go.
we'll be sending out notices. I'll be giving all the new data, have a new book, get everybody what they, you know, need.
That's in May?
Yeah. May 6th? May 15th. 15th.
In conjunction with Canadian County Chamber of
Yeah, we're doing it with them.
Got it.
And they're going to have someone from South Jersey Economic Development also speak.
Okay, great.
But-
Well, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, you need to call. You know, we have it, you know, I can answer or whatever.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm back. I'm back from leave and everything.
Okay,
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
All right.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Maury, would you give us a quick walkthrough on that sheet that we talked about last time? How to fix the parking problem?
Well, I don't have much to offer. There hasn't been a great deal of time that Steve and I have had to talk about this, to be perfectly honest. Been pretty consumed with a number of other issues and problems, and I think my colleague has also. We had a brief conversation yesterday, so that's all I can really say at this point in time. We really haven't gotten any further into it. We just,
There, buried in those recommendations
Yeah.
is actually data collection in terms of especially the parking, the current.
well, part of this would have to go before the other members of council to see whether or not that's something that they want to
Right,
undertake.
I think my point is
Yeah.
MTRAC has done that before. We could do that again if the committee chose, wants to.
If council wants us to proceed with some of the other things that are outlined here. We were first just, Steve and I just tried to have a conversation to get an idea of what the parking trust fund construct is right now, current balance, and some of the assessment dollars that come into there on a yearly basis. That was, we started at the first one on the top of the list.
Yeah.
And that's as far as we got,
Okay,
so.
well, we're here to help on that because.
Sure,
that's-
appreciate that, and we can circulate that and have a conversation to see, you know,
Okay.
what the other members.
And the recycling cost-benefit analysis, that issue on the recycling is going in 6 ways from Sunday from what it looks like. But,
It's going before council on Tuesday.
right,
It is still not passed. Again, I had a conversation with other members of council. Our position at this point is we haven't passed the ordinance, number one, and number two, as stated at the last meeting, we all feel strongly that we were going to wait till, at a minimum, until November to have some understanding of what the impact would be. This is virtually an unknown at this point. There's a lot of presumptions about volume coming off. There's also a lot of speculation that we would be losing volume because businesses might self-select out. So at this point, there's not really a true denominator to understand what impact, if the ordinance is passed, will have. We understand certainly the residential market, but the other side of the equation is not known, so.
and the larger issue is whether or not a cost-benefit analysis shows that municipal recycling pickup generally is a good idea or a bad idea? Is that going to be factored into the discussion?
I'm not sure whether or not that would be part of the discussion, a good idea or a bad idea. I think it's, in my, definition of a cost-benefit analysis is to say, what is the cost?
Right.
And are we spending more, are we spending less, or are we just pretty much passing the regulatory requirement based on something that's been operationalized for the past 5 years?
Which may have, in those past 5 years, proven to be very problematic in terms of its revenue yield and its effectiveness.
Yeah, I mean, well, all of that changed back in, I think, 2017, 2018. So, recycling as far as being able to be a commodity in which you're generating revenue in the city is probably, I think that ship sailed.
Non-existent.
Yeah.
Which was, by the way, the linchpin that was used to enact that program in the first place. It was
Sure,
supposed to be
but
paid
it's,
for itself.
yeah, but at some point in time, there was a decision made that, it was put back into operations for a portion of commercial pickup. What we're just trying to do is right the ship. We're trying to align the regulations with practice. And I think until we get past next week to figure out what the decision is and how it is voted upon, and then giving some time through the season to determine really truly what the baseline utilization is. Because we don't, to be honest with you, we really don't know. Because there may be some businesses that have to self-select out because they don't meet the parameters. But we don't know that until we pass it.
But Maureen, isn't it fair to say that in the first reading it was a unanimous
Yes, it
agreement?
was.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Okay. Anybody have any issues or questions on that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the only question is, for me, I think this was introduced when I was still on council.
Yes. But the first time.
We put it off a couple of times.
Yeah.
But here's the thing I was concerned about then, and I'm still concerned about, and I'm not sure anybody has done any kind of research on it, and that is a lot of businesses do not use the city at all.
That's
They
correct.
pay 100% of their pickup. Question is, what are they going to do when the new law is put into effect? Any change
So-
contemplated by any?
Well, I think, Mike, that's the point, which is why having this time period in which to vet and understand which businesses might come on or what come off. Right now, that number is not really known. Now, the people who are most versed in understanding what goes on with regard to what they pick up and who might come off are the individuals who run Public Works, right? Eric and Frank are, intimately familiar with what kind of volume is out there. I would go as far as to suggest that if a commercial business, and I might be wrong, could be proven wrong, has a pickup by a commercial vendor now, they're not going to necessarily be able to meet the criteria because they're doing it purposely because they have enough volume that constitutes it. So, again, I think that there's a lot of speculation as to which way this could go. We are trying to align parameters around what has been operationalized in the last 5 years, understand what the baseline metric looks like, who's coming on and who's coming off, and then revisiting all of that in November with a report from, Frank and Eric, who run the program, and understanding truly what I would say, the analysis is around what our experience has been. We're going to have 5 or 6 months in season in which we're going to be able to do this. Some of this also is really and if you've read some of the articles that have taken place, changes that North Wildwood has seen, Middle Township, all of those places, there is this trend towards management and control of what's being put out curbside and doing so in a way that is not unwieldy and is not necessarily an eyesore to the public. Limitations on what can be picked up. Middle Township, instituted that. They tried to go out to a commercial vendor and could not find one through the bid. They actually had to negotiate with a vendor to have them, work with them. They're taking pictures if they're getting to a curbside and you're over your volume. We've incorporated some of the language, not pictures, but some of the language in there to kind of put a box around this. So I think this is an exercise in us trying to attempt to understand truly, rather than speculating what the world might be.
So does that mean, do I have to go to the meeting on Tuesday, or are you guys going to?
It's going to be pretty crowded.
Yeah,
That's-
it's going to be very crowded. We anticipate that.
So you-
There's a
and-
lot of, there's a lot
Probably on
of,
both sides of the issue, I bet.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, the only reason I ask that is unless there was an intention already of shelving that before the meeting. That's why.
I'm not going to speak to a decision I make as a council member at this table.
I didn't
I'll tell
think you,
that.
You're
I
our
didn't think you
liaison,
could.
you have to help us.
I can help you, Dennis. I don't have to speak to what I will decide at a council table.
That would be helpful.
It would be helpful, but it's not something I'm going to do, with all due respect.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do right now is just kind of explain sort of the reasoning for why the ordinance was put together. We started this in September. And I would like to restate this once again. My position in starting this was because we had the employees from Public Works come to us and ask for help. And that was my intention. This was not to make this a battleground between residents and commercial. That was the full reason why I got engaged in this, and wanted to do my best by those individuals that said, please, we need help. I did drive-arounds with them. I was out in the street picking up trash with Eric one day because of the wind. So I truly have to say that I intimately know a snippet of what they live with each and every day. And I think that is the reason why I agreed to go along with this. It's taken a lot longer than any of us would have liked for a lot of different reasons, which I won't go into. But Tuesday, we need to come to a decision as a city, one way or the other, because we can't continue to operate and have an ordinance on the books that doesn't match
That
what's
doesn't
happening
match
in
practice, right?
Exactly.
What,
That is-
Marie, one question, and again, I apologize for not knowing the answer to this question, but for residential properties today, is there a limit of 198 or 2? I know what the new ordinance says, but what did the old ordinance say?
The old one, there was no limit.
There was no limit.
No, right. Now, we're trying to play fair on both sides of the equation and at least put some limits around it. Yeah. It just, I think it was very, it's been a
It
while.
was
since I
residential
looked
only, but there was no limit.
Yeah, right.
And I could probably stand contradicted, but the position of MTRAC on this issue, just from discussions, is how much is this thing costing? Who's paying for it? Who benefits from it? And whether or not any source of revenue other than property tax is available to continue the service if you want to continue the service.
So you're talking about the service in general?
Yeah.
Regardless of who it
Right.
is? And I will say that's a whole other
Oh,
conversation, yeah.
Well, it's the,
I like that can.
it's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And it's not a whole other issue, it's a Siamese issue. Because to change the number of cans and who does what at this level, at this time, may be kicking the whole larger question down the road to a point where
It may very well, Dennis, but as I will go back to the position that we don't really know, to be quite frank, about really what the baseline is.
Yeah, that's right, that's why.
That is the problem, and the only way you get a handle on that, in my opinion, is to put out a program and put some parameters around it, and then you digest it, then you investigate, then you get the update in the report, and then you say, okay, is it an aha moment? And on which side of the equation is the aha moment? And until, there are many people in this town, and in particular, who, if you really want to say we pay for it through our taxes for recycling as a resident, they never put out a recycling can because they're weekenders. They take it home. I used to drive my stuff to the yard myself on Saturdays when I come down. I'm looking at Russ, and you probably.
Yeah, and there's people who would never put out a recycling can, they live here, but they don't bother, they just dump it in their regular trash.
This is very true.
There's some value to addressing just the employee concern, which this ordinance does do, all right? We have an issue that needs to be addressed, and it may not be, it doesn't mean we have to wait 15 years to look at it again. we have a problem that has to be solved.
Right, and we have a commitment that, and that was agreed to at the council table. November, we're getting a report.
I was going to say, if that's going to be critical, I think, to
And believe me, having spent as much time on this as I have, I will have that report, I can assure you.
You may want to put a sunset provision in the ordinance, just to make sure that the report has a meaningful impact when it comes in November.
I don't want to predetermine an outcome to this. In my opinion, let's just get through this
No, I'm
season.
not-
Yeah.
I'm talking about-
I know you're talking about the ordinance, but we will have that report. It's already been stated publicly, and we've told Frank and Eric that we expect them to track this and have that information available for presentation, so.
Okay, anybody else have anything on this? All right, the next.
I have a quick question for
Yeah.
Maureen. If the ordinance is not passed on Tuesday, and there's a hard stop to business recycling, are businesses permitted to take their recycling to the city yard?
Absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think that they've had issues with that. Some businesses have tried to do that, and
We have
they've
that, that we've
been-
already talked about and
that's
under discussion,
been-
Mike. And actually, Paul is working with the dumpster company that when they come to pick up full dumpsters, number one, and number two, there may be changes where the yard opens up at 7. I have to confirm, I have to follow up with him on this issue, and that we would just suggest, don't come until 9, because the dumpster trade-off might be scheduled between 7 and 8:30. I want to confirm that with him. That was a major discussion during our, one of our subcommittees.
So it will function ultimately?
Yes, it will function, yes, yes. And, we've talked about what accommodations may have to be made, even if they have, something else in the yard that they could take it, whatever. There are times, there will be a time, let's not say it's an absolute 100%, where somebody might be told, listen, can you just come back in about an hour? Just like many of us are when we go there, like whatever it might be. So there is, that might occur, but he was trying to make some accommodations and having hours that to be able to say, come at this time, because we're going to work with the dumpster company to make sure they're taking the full dumpsters out at a certain point, because they have to take them up to Burley and then get a clean one back down. So I just need to follow up with him to find out if he finalized all of those negotiations.
Any other questions?
Oh, absolutely. It's, it's,
Okay, next point,
I'm definitely bringing dinner this week.
point number 7, reorganization of the MTRAC committee. I have decided that I'm going to be stepping away and down from the chairmanship and the membership of the MTRAC committee. I'm doing this for 2 reasons. Number one, the MTRAC, I believe, is a freestanding resource for this community. It's proven its worth, proven its value, and I think it exists beyond anybody, any one person, any one particular person. I think it can stand on its own merits, and it should, and it will, because I think Bob is the only one here who may be older than me. I don't think so.
He just outed you, Bob.
Say no way, Bob. Say no
In
way.
any event,
MTRAC trash talk.
Yeah.
the best way to ensure that an institution continues to function properly is to turn it over to the younger folks who can do what they can and will do what they can. And I'm very pleased with what the city has done with and for MTRAC. The city created it, the city's taken full advantage of it, and I'm actually very proud of that. So
should be.
So,
at this point, I'm going to step away from the chairmanship and the membership of the committee and kick it open to anybody who want to make a nomination for who.
So I just want to say one word, just a few words before that, on behalf of the city, and I know for the members of this committee, thank you. What you have done, Dennis, has been a phenomenal body of work. You have dedicated yourself to this. You've made recommendations that have substantially changed the landscape of the city with regard to revenue. You have always been someone who has been bold and your thoughts, and sort of pushed us all along. And just tonight, an example of that is the whole short-term rental and the fact that we, did go out and find a platform to be able to shore up and make sure that we have everyone in compliance for many reasons. And so just on behalf of the mayor and the rest of council and the administration, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'd like a nomination from the floor.
So I know I haven't been around for a while. I'm back to my roots again here tonight for the first time. But coming from a city council position where, of course, we saw Dennis many times, many lengthy times, and enjoyed every minute of it. It was always informative. I also can say that we got to experience Martin and his presentations there, which were very capable, and I think he would be a good choice to follow in Dennis's footsteps.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I would definitely also would second it. I think Martin has been a terrific asset to this committee since I've been participating on it, and is always thoughtful, and I think would be a terrific asset to this committee.
So I'll do the normal. I have a motion on the floor from Mr. Yeager, and I have a second from Carolyn and from Russ. Marty, you're the new chair. Congratulations.
Forgot to vote.
Sorry. Okay, it's my first time doing it. All right. I'll have a vote, Mr. Yeager.
Aye. Oh,
You're not
no,
voting.
I was voting for Yeager.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Russ?
Yes.
Sarah? Bob, Sarah?
Yes.
Yes.
I vote too.
Job?
I'll abstain.
You'll abstain?
Yes.
Job? Yes. And Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay. And of course, I vote yes. It's been a pleasure working with Marty. Actually, Steve and I worked on a couple projects, the shared services agreements, did a lot of work on that, and, it proved to be extremely beneficial, and it's still in the works for some of them. So it's been a pleasure working with you, and in this role, it will be truly a tremendous asset to the committee. You got big shoes to fill.
I do.
Yeah.
I have always been stunned at the amount of creativity that Dennis has brought to this function, backed by hard data and research that I'm not even sure how to replicate, but I have your phone number, so I will make sure that if I'm stuck, I'll give you a call. I also think that, notwithstanding the fact that we lost Steve to a higher calling, the capability of the membership has increased significantly over the last couple of years while I've been a member of MTRAC. And I feel as if we have a really powerful team here sitting at this table today that I think will be able to continue to do the great work that Dennis has started for us.
Yeah, but we need his charts.
Well, let me make a few comments. I've been leading up to this for the last several years, and I think it's safe to say that I recruited a lot of the folks who are on this committee to make sure that there is that base of competence and experience, and we definitely have it. It's the most significant external resource the city has, in my opinion. And it's, by the way, other towns are looking at doing something like this. Cape May Point wants to do it. Middle Township, Upper Township wants to do it. So I still live on Lafayette Street, and I'll be available anytime you want me to. I'll even work with special projects if you think that's a good thing for me to do. But I do appreciate your kind words. I did want to make also another comment. I suggested everybody on the committee revisit the resolution that created the committee. I sent it all to you to make sure that you understand everything that's in that and what you're expected to do by that resolution. Also, Maureen sent around a resolution that the city passed, which clarifies and organizes a lot of the stuff that I was never able to do because I was basically running a one-man operation for a couple of years and got used to not doing it. So take a look at those two resolutions. They're the charter. They're the dual charter of MTRAC, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job. I'll be watching you. Thank you.
Thank you.
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'm actually pretty heavily involved in Eastland Theater now.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, I really appreciate the support. And I had to.
Well, I'll tell you that the most effective board members I've had in the last 10 years. They have time, they have knowledge of expertise, they have relationships, it always works. And achieving.
So let me know the next time I'm in town. If you want me to get- I'd like to just go. I had to leave.
A lot of thoughts on parking. The number one problem is you keep on saying it's a parking problem. I haven't put the parking problem. What is the parking? Parking. Keep it circulating.
Not enough parking where people are.
But
Oh, no, I get it.
listen to the book. Tell me you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Callie, I'm gonna reach out to you. I love this. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you. Okay.
So anyway, congratulations. See you. Maybe on the golf course.
He still has your email.
Boy, that was a hell of a meeting.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. But I look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you.
I have some ideas. The tourism, and getting our fair share.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. And
I'm gonna send an email to the board member and with some, like,
that's really cool.
yeah.
Like, folks, like, stop, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'll see you Tuesday night, come to the meeting.
I'm probably not gonna be here. My colleagues will, my bid colleagues will be here. It's, my husband will be away, so.
Actually, we need somebody from the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, that's.
And that was charity.
That was charity was.
And I tried to get, what's his name, to come, and he's not connected with the
I
Chamber.
renewed the charity last year, and I said I'm on MTRAC. She said, oh, so am I. I'm like, you're not.
Who said that?
Charity.
So am I.
Good, we would have given back.
You know, but it is, well, except that she